The Fort Laramie Treaty in 1851 created and outlined boundaries for 8 nations and created the Great Sioux Reservation. The land included all South Dakota west of the Missouri River. The treaty was not kept, and the site of the nation's sacred Black Hills were not only disturbed, but defaced and mined for gold. Laws and provisions were made in 1877 that allowed the government to overturn previous treaties and put the land belonging to Indigenous under government control, further shrinking and separating the reservations. Due to natural flooding in the state of Dakota, the government decided to build dams along the river. The dams caused a collection of water that was responsible for covering over 200,000 acres of Indigenous land. It is important to understand the history because it is the injustice of the past that has paved the way for the government to build the pipeline through treaty land.
Now let's discuss in a little more detail the actual event of the Standing Rock Nation protests, or otherwise known as the Dakota Access Pipeline Project. The protest began mid-April of 2016 and lasted almost a full year. For the Standing Rock Nation and tribes belonging to it, time was no issue, and were very determined to fight as long as they needed to for the sacred ground. The Dakota Access Pipeline Project was a $3.7 billion project that was intended to transport crude oil from oil fields in North Dakota to a refinery in Illinois near Chicago. The pipeline ran through the Standing Rock and Sioux Tribe Nation's land and created a problem that they believed would threaten the sacred native land and could contaminate the water supply from the Missouri River. As Emily discussed earlier, the Missouri River provided life for the Standing Rock Nation through nourishment and water. During the protests, many of the protesters and activists, or water protectors as they refer to themselves as, set up many spiritual campgrounds. Over the year of the protests, thousands of tribe members and Indigenous supporters used these spiritual campgrounds to sleep, to hydrate, and to practice Indigenous cultures to show the Dakota Access Pipeline Project what they would be destroying.
The outcome of the Standing Rock protest is the result of conflicting worldview between Western worldview and Indigenous worldview. Western worldview values private wealth and the exploitation of the environment in order to create wealth. In comparison, Indigenous worldview values the protection of the environment and the creation of communal wealth. After the Standing Rock protest, the Obama administration decided to put a hold on the project and stop building the pipeline. However, that decision was overruled by the Trump administration by deciding to go ahead with the project, to build the pipeline and make it operational. The pipeline became operational and was transporting up to 500,000 barrels of oil a day. Tribal communities didn't give up, and they filed a lawsuit that argued that the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers failed to perform the adequate environmental review before establishing the pipeline. In 2020, a court ruled in favor of the Indigenous tribes. The Dakota Access Pipeline Project is a direct threat to the rights of Indigenous communities. The eventual hold on operations of the pipeline, established in the July 2020 court ruling, is testament of the solidarity of Indigenous communities. If Indigenous rights are threatened in the future, we now know that it will take unity amongst the tribes in order to protect those threatened.